everyone! I've shared a double slider card in a previous video, but today I'm using that same concept for a slider card with a bit of a spin on it. And I'm featuring Neat and Tangle's Wild Ones set, and in particular I'm spotlighting the monkey holding the balloon. To start out, I cut a card base of 4 1/4 and 5 1/2, and I'll also use a rectangle die to cut out a border piece. So I want to leave at least 3/4 of an inch around the card. I'm going to list all the dimensions down below because there's quite a few pieces to this card. The two additional pieces that you see me cutting are the slider mechanism and the pull tab. For the slider mechanism, I'll mark off 1/2 inch, and this is the part that will be peeking out at the bottom of the card so the person can pull on it. And for the slider mechanism, I'm marking 2 slits that I'll cut out, and they're each a 1/4 of an inch from the top and from the side. Since the slider mechanism is actually the background of this card, I'm going to create a sky scene using My Favorite Things stamp stencil and distress inks. And for this particular background, I decided to go with a blue and purple sky. Using the stencil helps create a sky background very quickly. I also like how the 4 different edges gives you different looks, and you can also flip it over for variety. This is the sky that the monkey will be floating up in front of. And I also forgot to mention that I am using Bristol Smooth cardstock for this particular card. I do tend to use Bristol Smooth when I want to use distress inks for the background, since the texture of the paper makes blending very easy. So once this background's done, I'll go ahead and cut the slits to create the slider mechanism. And again, the slider slits are a 1/4 of an inch from the edge. And I'll use a page protector sheet that is 3 1/4 inch wide, and the length doesn't really matter because you end up cutting it anyway to fit your card. So I'll go ahead and set aside this for later. For the images, I'm actually using sticker paper this time round. I find it easier to just go ahead and stamp images directly onto sticker paper, cut them out, and stick them directly onto the card. It's also partially laziness. Um, and to avoid using adhesive. But sticker paper is a lot thinner, so you have to be more careful about coloring them because the inks will bleed outside the lines, especially if you're doing a lot of blending. For these particular images, I'm using my Spectrum Noir markers, and I'm pretty careful with not going over each of the colors multiple times because it would bleed. So once I finish coloring all these images, I can cut these out and directly stamp them to the background. So for this particular card, I am using the monkey with the balloon, the turtle with the cake, a bird, and the present. And you see that like I colored in that snake, but there was nowhere that I wanted to put them, so I ended up not using them, but I put those aside for later, and sometimes I can use them on different cards or into my planner. But for all the colors that I am using for these images, I will list them down below and on my blog. So if you're interested in how I colored these images, the colors will be there. Once I am finished with coloring these images, I will go ahead and pull that Go Wild sentiment from the stamp set, and using my Misty, I'm going to stamp it on this background. And the first time wasn't dark enough, so I'll go back a second time to stamp it again until it's dark. I will need a piece of grass to hide the monkey, so I die cut that quickly and color up the edges. The slider mechanism is ready to assemble, so I'll slide that piece of page protector through the slits in the front and I'll flip it around. I'll use a piece of score tape at the very edge of the page protector, and I'll take the other side and press it down, and I'll cut off the excess page protector. The taped part of this mechanism should be at the very top of the card. And for the pull tab, I marked off that 1/2 inch and I'm coloring it up. So it gives that card a pop of color at the very bottom, and that your recipient will know to pull this. So on the back of the slider mechanism, the score tape should be at the very top. I'll add another piece of score tape, and this time it's to adhere the pull tab. So adhering the pull tab directly onto the acetate will cause the acetate to move once you pull on the tab. I cut out another A2 piece of cardstock to anchor this card. And because we need space for the pull tab and the slider mechanism to move freely, we need foam tape. I cut out 3 strips of 5.5 inches length and I cut those in half. We need 1 layer for the back and 2 layers for the front of the card. So once I add that 1 layer on the back, I'll anchor this card down, and then I'll go ahead and add the 2 layers of foam tapes to the sides. So once I have that ready, I'll go ahead and adhere the monkey that will be the centerpiece of this card. The grass piece that I cut out earlier is what we're using to cover up the monkey. So when he floats to the top with his balloon, it's a surprise. But all you see at first is just the balloon. So I play around with the grass piece until I get it down to the perfect size. I'll add score tape around the edges and adhere it directly to that border piece we cut out at the very beginning. I cut out 2 additional pieces of foam tape to add to the side of the monkey on the grass, and this is just to make sure that the monkey won't rub against the grass when he floats up. Removing the release paper on the foam tape, the border is added directly onto the card. So with the images that I'm using for the card, I decided to add the turtle and the present, and I add a little bit of shading at the bottom of the present so it just looks a little grounded. For the bird, I decided that I wanted to float along with the monkey, so I'll add him directly onto the acetate. So every time you pull on the pull tab, the bird and the monkey will float up. I have a card base and I will adhere it directly on there so it becomes a nice card. So that's it for my card for today. And I know that there's quite a few steps, but I think that it becomes a really fun surprise for anyone to receive this card. All the supplies I used will be listed down below and on my blog. See you next time. Bye.